Hey everyone, Temporal here, and today I wanted to talk about the announcement that we are looking at a Switch Pro coming up. The expectation is that we're going to get that in autumn, and I believe that was September or October, is what we're currently getting from Nintendo here. The interesting things about this that we're seeing are that we're moving up to a 7-inch screen on the unit itself. We're looking at a higher price point. The current price point for the old unit, the standard Switch, is 300. The new one will be higher. We don't know what yet. And it's going to offer 4K support when plugged in with its adapter, with its station to the TV. That's pretty big news. And that's pretty big news because, hey, the Switch has been a wildly popular system. People have really enjoyed that. Nintendo's really stayed relevant with that system. But even when the Switch was released, it was sort of a little, hey, this thing is already out of date on release from a power standpoint. Now, that's okay. They're choosing to play in that sphere. They're choosing to play at a price point that makes sense with the ability to go between handheld and portable. I do like this more than the, other things that they've had where Switches that, can't dock, etc., that are purely handheld. This does look better, and this is clearly going to be a more powerful system. I'm a little surprised to see this time frame for release um, with the shortage we have on parts right now. We have the shortage. I think they even talk about the shortages, semiconductor shortage that we have. Yeah, like I'm a little surprised to see that this announcement is happening then, but hey, the wheels have to keep turning, so that does make sense. And I'm actually really curious what it'll do for performance of some existing games. We have games like Overwatch, since this is primarily an Overwatch channel, where we see, hey, wait a second, the Switch really doesn't actually run Overwatch. We pretend it runs Overwatch, but it really doesn't actually run Overwatch. The thing is sluggish, it fails. You see top 500 going all the way down to Diamond at times. It gets rough there. So I will be curious to see that, and one of the reasons I'll be curious to see that is I don't, for people who have played on the Switch, for people who have played first-person shooters on the Switch like Splatoon, it's actually a really interesting and kind of unique way of aiming. It's way better than what you get with controllers. Yeah, let me just draw a terrible controller here. Than what you get with controllers uh, with the dual joystick. Like, it is way better than that. It's not necessarily comfortable for people to initially get used to, but what you can do with aim with this motion control, while not as good as a mouse, not as good as a mouse and keyboard. Mouse and keyboard is supreme when it comes to aim control. I'm not going to disagree on that. But what you can get with motion controls is actually quite a bit better when you get used to it, quite a bit faster, quite a bit more precise than what you can get with these. I'd actually really like to see like some cross-platform play or something just to watch what Switch users, if their system had the specs, could do to beat up on some of the old controllers, etc. I know that's a controversial take, but I encourage any of you that have Switches to go play some Splatoon. There's like a 10-hour learning curve to getting control of it, being like, oh, this is how you do it, etc. And it won't be comfortable, but once you get it, it is fantastic. Um, okay, so that's kind of the news that we got the Switch announcement. We got the 7-inch, which will be an upgrade. We're going to have more power to it. It is going to be interesting. Like, how is that really going to perform? And it's also interesting because Switch was released sort of late into the lifespan or moderately through the lifespan of the PS4 and its Xbox competitor. And it was clearly trying to desync. And now we have this one coming out, and this one is coming out as the same gen, but sort of an upgrade to that gen. Again, but this is after the new systems have already come out. So we'll see how that does, if they're still even perceived to be a console war, or if those are completely their own independent thing at this point, and if being out with your tech upgrade after the next real gen of systems hurts their sales. I have a suspicion that it won't. I especially have a suspicion that it won't if they're able to do a better job of fixing their Joy-Con issues, because we all know that their Joy-Con issues have been an issue. They've done some work to fix that. Supposedly, the newer units don't have those issues nearly as often. And they've had windows. I think they're still currently in a window where they've accepted. It took them years to get there, where they accepted, okay, fine, we'll do free refurbishing of your Joy-Cons if you send them in to fix them, etc. They really ran too long with just being difficult and being difficult enough to effectively get people to go buy new Joy-Cons, which were like $80, which is, not so great for a system that is supposed to be so kid friendly and is aimed at kids, etc. Like, you don't want those to be super, super breakable, but the system always had a bit of danger with that. I mean, that screen is a little fragile for what it is, and you were always going to get that with a touchscreen. So I think this is interesting news. I think this is interesting news in general for Switch, and I will also be curious about this from an Overwatch perspective in terms of what does this do in terms of the level of competitiveness there, because this could be something where, hey, the controls are different, people might actually want to play it in this motion sensor mode, etc., if the game itself can actually handle it. So let's take a look at chat here, because that's really the news and that's what I wanted to cover. You bought the Animal Crossing Switch? Oh, sorry to hear that. Or maybe not sorry to hear that. Still probably good. Still probably enjoyable. I have a Switch as well. I don't know that I'll immediately upgrade. I don't know that I'll upgrade at all. I'll ultimately want to see more about it, but we'll see. We'll see. The Switch still doesn't have Roblox. Overwatch on Switch was kind of dead on release from what I heard. I agree. It was dead on release, but that probably shouldn't have been the case. Like, it was dead on release, but it was kind of dead on release. I even saw moments, I think, where it was hard to get from the store because the thing just doesn't perform on it. It's similar to the issue that Cyberpunk had, where it's like, hey, they went and pulled that from some of the past generation systems because it just didn't make sense. It effectively didn't work. And Overwatch is sort of in a similar boat on the Switch, which was, again, early warning sign that, hey, the Switch is at its technical limit, etc., for thinking about crossplay. So this upgrade, how long will that keep it relevant? I'll be curious. This better not be another Wii U. I mean, the Switch has done much better. This isn't I don't view this as a new system. What we're seeing here is more like this is a upgrade to the existing system, just like we see Xbox and PlayStation will be like, here's the PS4, here's the PS4 Plus. That'll, have a slightly better video card in it, slightly better specs, same system. That's what I view this as. I view this as a tech upgrade of the first system based on the news that we see here. This is not the next generation of system for Nintendo. This is the midway tech upgrade that you usually see, where this is the, better version of it if you want to run your games in 4K, for example, if you want to have a bigger screen, for example. Yeah. When's the GameCube 2 coming out? I'm still waiting for the Dolphin, man. I wish Nintendo would care about performance. Yeah, that would be. I mean, sometimes they do. When it comes to their stuff, they do. They made Breath of the Wild work, right? Like, that happened. And they're not the only company that has that issue. If you looked at the PS3 had like okay, the PS3 was a decent system, and you could watch that. Oh, look, when Square works on it, when Sony works on it, when PlayStation wants to make their game works, they can like find all of the hidden power wired in their system, etc. But when other developers want to use it, it's like, we don't even know how to do this thing because you've made it so complicated, so weird, so like hidden power to get out of it, etc. And we saw much the same thing with Breath of the Wild for the Switch, where that game was big and pretty and didn't have performance issues. On the flip side, we've seen other games that did. Other big and pretty games that had bigger performance issues, like the Xenoblade 2 stuff. That looks like something you should talk to a doctor about. It got better. It got better what I was drawing there, blah. Want to see a top 500 Widow gyro control? That could be fun. Doesn't PlayStation have motion controls? I played Mirror's Edge on PS3, and I remember having to balance across beams with motion. Yeah, but they're really weak compared to what exists on the Switch. Like, yes, there are some very slight motion control things. There was even a little bit of a move in that era from like, hey, let's get the motion control like $50 plugin to add to like the PlayStation and Xbox ecosystems, but they're not something that everyone has. They're not native, or they're the baby things that the controllers have. And the tiny bit that the controllers have just really are not much, don't get you very far on those compared to what the Switch has. You can't actually gyro aim in any serious way with a PlayStation controller. You can't do it. You can gyro aim with the Switch in a very serious way. They discontinued the Xbox Kinect, exactly. The controllerless stuff was awesome. Gorilla Glass is your friend. Yeah, it's better at taking damage than Winston. Gorilla Glass is better than the gorilla. Uh, nice. My dad used my Switch so much that I need a new one, so this is a good time. Perfect. Yes, the Switch is very much what the Wii wanted to be. And that's the thing, Nintendo doesn't really view themselves as a video game company, or historically they haven't. They've been around forever. Nintendo has been around forever, and they're a very old toy company. So that's why you see them do weird things, branch into different areas than other things. Like they went, "Hey, let's have the Game Boy camera back in the day. Hey, let's have the Game Boy printer back in the day. Hey, let's make sure, our N64 controller is going to be like weird, etc. Hey, we're going to have these jumbo-sized games, games for our things that have battery packs in them, or motion, or not motion, or rumble packs in them, or we're going to do the Wii, which was, their first volley into motion control, etc. Because they're constantly pushing the envelope on that thing, they're constantly going, hey, let's go do this crazy stuff. Again, because they think of themselves as a toy company much more so than a video game company, at least compared to their primary competitors. They are always going to be in a place where they're going to be a little more hit or miss. They're going to go a little bit more for innovation, and sometimes that's going to flop like the Wii U, and other times that's going to be very successful like the Switch was. And technically the Wii itself was successful, but the problem with the Wii's success is the Wii's success was mostly they sold a bunch of platforms, they sold the actual console a ton, and then people didn't buy games for it because a lot of those console sales, even though it was selling out everywhere, were to people who, got it for Christmas, got it for this, to people who weren't traditionally gamers. The Wii did a really good job of selling to people who weren't gamers and then didn't become gamers. They just used Wii Fit, Wii Sports, whatever, and for 6 months, a year, whatever, they didn't really buy other games for it, and it didn't convert them into gamers. So realistically speaking, the Switch has been more successful. And again, this looks like a tech upgrade for the Switch if people are willing to shell out money, not a new generation of systems. I would be more concerned about a new generation of systems because, again, they can be very hit or miss when it comes to their next generation of systems. And it would be normal to continue to expect that. Just because they've had a good run of a few systems in a row, not a few in a row, they had the Wii U. Just because outside of the Wii U, they've had a lot of good systems, again, they like to experiment. They like to do weird stuff like that. So it wouldn't be weird if we got another Wii U at some point. It could be the next generation. And I did read some things. It's been a long time, but I did read some things about what their developers are playing with that do leave me a little scared about. You guys are experimenting in a Wii U type direction for their next gen, but doesn't immediately come to mind. Unrelated, but man, Breath of the Wild is such an overrated game. Um, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. Like, it's not the best game ever, and I don't think it would be like, hey, this is the best game ever. Oh my goodness, everyone absolutely has to play this. How could you not like this, etc. But it was an open world game long after open world games had sort of left, after we all sick of open world games, after we'd all played a million open world games, that was like, hey, this is fun again. They really got their systems right, their weapon durability, their collect everything, their go do this. Like, that game was good. That game was very good, in fact, I would say. Like, it might not be, oh my god, this is a 12 out of 10 game, best thing to ever happen, but it was a system seller and it deserved to be. I don't know what circles you're in that you're saying it's way overrated. Like, I think it's probably one of the best 2 to 3 games that have come out on the Switch, and its year it probably was the best console game to come out that year on any console. I'm trying to think what competition it even had. So, like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that take, Semitic. It's definitely an upgrade, but it's more like the specs it's definitely an upgrade, but it's more like the specs it probably would have launched. Probably would have launched if what? Animal Crossing lags if you have too many items. Yeah, no, the system is struggling. We know. Breath of the Wild still lags on Switch. They just were able to make it playable. Um, That lag is pretty minor. That lag was pretty minor. Yes, they were able to make it playable, and they were able to make it playable to a level at which most people don't notice. Nintendo plus PC equals all you need in life, besides hot Korean gamer GF, who is top 500 flanking Zen. Okay, okay. Nintendo managed to get consoles into assisted living homes. Okay. Wii U wasn't really bad. The reason it mostly failed was that it was too expensive and was too similar to the original Wii. It also didn't have games, but that's always a problem. If you don't get a big enough install base, you don't get developers wanting to go make games for it because it's a pain to make games for it. Also, as you get distanced as a unit from the other two or three types of gaming, which were, Sony, Microsoft, and PC, you end up in a place where it's like it's easy to make a game for both of these things. In fact, and then it's easier to make a game for both of these things and this thing than it is to make a game for it's like you're making a game for this and it's a ton of work to convert to these, or you make a game that's very easy to convert between these three and hard to convert over to here. And if you have a small install base, that just doesn't make sense. They probably needed some better first party games to really get the system moving in the first place. Nintendo's fans have grown up, but Nintendo still wants to have kiddie fans, not 20-something 30-year-olds. Yeah, no, that's true. That's true, Nardstorm. It's always sort of been true though, and they've made the decision that they're going to keep aiming down to keep capturing the next generation rather than to age up with their fans. That's very clearly a business model decision that they've made. Tempora liked it. What did I like? I don't know. Breath of the Wild? Yeah, I liked Breath of the Wild. True, the Wii U was good, just too little improvements. Yeah, Breath of the Wild, yes. New Sonic game supposedly going to be inspired by Breath of the Wild. I'm excited. I mean, that doesn't mean it'll be good, but it could be. I don't know if Nintendo can really be called innovative as of late. They've played it incredibly safe, and anything they try to experimentally, they kind of do half-assed and cheap out. I mean, the Switch itself was kind of innovative. Like, they said, no, we're not doing a next generation home console. We're doing a next generation portable. Like, it's hard for me to agree with that, Adam, when they did do the Switch itself. And the Switch the Switch is still a recent enough thing that I'm going to have to disagree with that. Like, we look at that and go, hey, that was, maybe that seems like it should have been an obvious space, but that was not a space that was well occupied where you could go, oh, yes, we're going to portable with this. Like, yes, you have the Sony tried effectively with some of their tools in terms of no, you can do this and you can bounce it between your PS Vita, etc., and the TV, but it didn't really work. Was they made that work pretty well? It had touchscreen, it has motion controls, it has its Joy Cons. Like, it's hard not to call that innovative. I'm going to disagree with that one. I think Mario Odyssey blew it out of the water. Oh, you liked Mario Odyssey more? That's fine. I, on the other hand, was like, meh, towards Mario Odyssey, but that's fine. Oh, I meant the upgrade are the specs the Switch should have launched with. 720 1080 docked was pathetic for launch. Again, I think that was kind of an intentional decision. I don't think they could have hit the price point they wanted to. Like, you're hitting up against the fact that they are trying to capture kids as an audience. And, if you're looking at the idea of a kid has to actually be able to buy this at some point, it can't just have to be a gift from their parents. You do want to have some ability to tap in for a kid to maybe be able to afford it. When you get up to $400 or $500, which is what you would be talking if at that time you tried to use specs that could consistently run better than 1080, that's going to be hard. That would be hard. And I think, again, they're trying to play to that. No, we want to be a console that kids play, kids get, etc. But I hear where you're coming from. I think it would have been really hard. I think it would have been really hard for them to play the we're gonna have top of the line or we're gonna have good specs because they couldn't actually have had top of the line specs. So it was probably better, and at least it has worked out for them based on the success of the console, to go, no, we are going to do this as a we don't even want to be compared to what's on the market now. Like we intentionally will be a step back from it because if we get close, people are going to compare it to it. Like it's hard to argue that that didn't work out well for them. Do you think Overwatch 2 will be on Dreamcast? Definitely, definitely. In fact, I think it's going to be on my Neo Geo. Honestly, with Breath of the Wild, call it me hanging on to older Zelda games, but I missed all the gadgets you progressively collected. The big world just felt empty sometimes. Once you played enough Breath of the Wild, the big world started to feel empty, sure, but you were well past beating the game. You were well past, collecting quite a bit in terms of shrines, etc. You really had to be the, no, I am done with the memories. I am done with the shrines. I am doing all this before it really started to feel like, wait, what is there to do, etc. But you'd have capped that out way faster in like a Link's Awakening or a Majora's Mask or something like that. So, meh. But yeah, I like the progress. It was, and that was the other thing. Like they took one of their beloved IPs, Zelda. They took one of their beloved successful IPs, and they tried something different with it. That's not usually how their Zelda games have worked. They did something different with their Zelda game, and they landed it. They stuck the landing. I'm happy to see that. I think they've been probably less successful with their Fire Emblem games and sticking that landing. They've been okay with those. They've actually been successful from a mainstream. People in general have liked them. It's sold good units, etc. But Fire Emblem fans aren't so happy. Uh, maybe the hardcore Zelda fans are having the same complaint that I'm having about the Fire Emblem stuff, where it's like the hardcore Zelda fans don't like it. But that's not widely what I've heard reported from people. Hmm. Okay. I think that basically covers it in terms of other things in here that we missed. Fire Emblem is one of those games I hear so much about and I've never tried it. I recommend them. Once the Fire Emblem games started making it to the US, so after we saw Roy and Marth in Smash, we got Fire Emblem 7 over here, which was just called Fire Emblem because we did those silly renamings, dropping numbers back then. That was good. Sacred Stones 8 was good. They've really all been good since then, but then we got into the three most recent games, and the two ones on handhelds, the two most recent ones on handhelds, so not Three Houses, got a little too into we're going to do time skips and it's less about a strategy game and it's more about like do your eugenics to breed the people perfectly and make them fall in love to get your super units as descendants, which was a little, this is what we're doing? Really? This is what the game is about now? Okay. Okay. I'm US. I'm US. Okay. Okay, I'll look at the Discord. Uh, okay. I see it. I see it. I'm not going to address that on. I'm not going to address that on stream. Okay. Um. Okay. We were looking through here. Was there anything else? More announced at E3. E3 is not really. That's a little surprising. E3 isn't really the event anymore. Um. And it's kind of been a while since E3 has been the event. And Nintendo was one of the first people to not really play ball at E3 and to go, we're doing the Nintendo Direct thing instead as their own direct marketing thing. Okay. Oh, that was the other thing. So the Nintendo Switch Pro did get listed on Amazon Mexico twice, two different listings for it. Immediately got pulled, but it did get listed. That was the only other tiny little interesting bit to this story. But it did, it looked like, had the right ASIN for it. So that was kind of interesting. Okay, I think that's going to do it. If you guys are interested in this kind of thing, please do like and subscribe, as that tells me you are. That's good feedback, etc. If you hate this kind of thing, go, this is too far removed from Overwatch. You're supposed to be coaching Overwatch. You should let me know that too. You could comment down below. You could tell me that. You could thumbs down the video. I'll get the message one way or the other. But I think that's going to do it. Thanks, guys. Temporal out.